Welcome back everyone to my deep dives into Proverbs. Today we'll be going over Proverbs Chapter 10. Before I start, I just want to say thank you. I had noticed there's been some traction going in my videos and some people have been watching, so thank y'all for listening in. And now we're going to get started. It begins with, "The Proverbs of Solomon, a wise child, brings joy to a father. A foolish child brings grief to a mother. Tainted wealth has no lasting value, but right living can save your life. The Lord will not let the godly go hungry, but he refuses to satisfy the craving of the wicked. Lazy people are soon poor, hard workers get rich. A wise youth harvests in the summer, but one who sleeps during the harvest is a disgrace. The godly are showered with blessings. The words of the wicked conceal violent intentions. We have happy memories of the godly, but the name of a wicked person rots away. The wise are glad to be instructed, but babbling fools fall flat on their faces. People with integrity walk with safety, but those who follow crooked paths will slip and fall. People who wink at wrong cause trouble, but a bold reproof promotes peace. The words of the godly are a life-giving fountain. The words of the wicked conceal violent intentions. Hatred stirs up quarrels, but love makes up for all offenses. Wise words come from the lips of people with understanding, but those lacking sense will be beaten with a rod. Wise people treasure knowledge, but the babblings of a fool invites disaster. The wealth of the rich is their fortress. The poverty of the poor is their destruction. The earnings of the godly enhance their lives, but evil people squander their money on sin. People who accept discipline are on the pathway to life, but those who ignore correction will go astray. Hiding hatred makes you a liar. Slandering others makes you a fool. Too much talk leads to sin. Be sensible and keep your mouth shut. The words of the godly are like sterling silver. The heart of a fool is worthless. The words of the godly encourage many, but fools are destroyed by their lack of common sense. The blessings of the Lord makes a rich person, and he adds no sorrow with it. Doing wrong is fun for a fool, but living wisely brings pleasure to the sensible. The fears of the wicked will be fulfilled. The hopes of the godly will be granted. When storms of life come, the wicked are whirled away, but the godly have a lasting foundation. Lazy people irritate their employers, like vinegar to the teeth or smoke in the eyes. Fear of the Lord lengthens one's life, but the years of the wicked are cut short. The hopes of the godly result in happiness, but the expectations of the wicked come to nothing. The way of the Lord is a stronghold to those with integrity, but it destroys the wicked. The godly will never be disturbed, but the wicked will be removed from the land. The mouth of the godly person gives wise advice, but the tongue that deceives will be cut off. The lips of the godly speak helpful words, but the mouth of the wicked speaks perverse words. Now that we've read the passage, we begin to digest this. It starts off talking about how a wise child brings joy to a father, and I think that's kind of telling us that a godly child, someone who worships the Father and they do right, it brings joy to the Father, not just the physical one, but also the heavenly one. Whilst a foolish child brings grief to a mother, both the physical and God, being that it's someone that's, constantly getting into trouble, constantly being a headache for the parents, constantly denying God, doing all these things that aren't godly, and it's really just causing trouble for everyone, and it's making God, grief. He's not happy about that. And then it says, tainted wealth has no lasting value, but right living can save your life. So that's just saying all these things, all these material things in the world, they don't matter. Only the Lord matters, which is right living, right? You're right with God, and that's going to save your life, it says. And it says, the Lord will not let the godly go hungry, but he refuses to satisfy the cravings of the soul. Wicked. And I think that's really saying, people who are doing God's work, who are doing these things, they're going to feel satisfied. They're going to feel good about themselves. While these people who aren't with God, who don't know God, who don't have this relationship, they're not going to be satisfied. They're always going to be wanting more, something to really distract them. And I can personally testify to that as, when I wasn't with God, it was just this constant, I'm looking for something to distract me, to fill this feeling up. But now that I'm with God, now I'm doing his work, release the best I can in my knowledge, I'm feeling a lot better now. I'm feeling more satisfied. I'm feeling fulfilled. Continuing on, it's talking about how lazy people are soon poor, while hard workers get rich. So these people who do nothing, right? They don't go to church. They don't read their Bible. They don't actively seek God. It says they are soon poor. They're not doing the things that they need. Versus hard workers, right? These people who are doing God's work, who are reading the Bible, who are praying every day, who are making their relationship with God better, they get rich, it says. And of course I'm talking about spiritually here, but the same can be applied in material. A boss, is not going to promote the guy who's always late, who never does overtime, who never, helps out the company, who never does these things. He's not going to get promoted, and he's going to be soon poor. Versus these hard workers who always stay overtime, who help the company out, who do all these things for the benefit, they're going to get rich. So this can be applied both spiritually and materially. So a wise youth harvests in the summer, but the one who sleeps during the harvest is a disgrace. And I think that's just a rehashing of what we just read. The lazy person is poor, while, the wise person, the hard worker, it gets rich. It says, the godly are showered with blessings, and the words of the wicked conceal violent intentions. So it's saying here that these people of God, truly of God, want to help you. They want to, uplift you. And so God showers those with blessings, right? I mean, we're literally spreading the gospel, which means we're spreading the good news. And I think that's a blessing. Versus the words of the wicked, they don't want to spread the gospel. They want to spread lies, spread violence, all for their own gain, or because they just don't like something. And it has violent intentions, it says. And it continues saying that we have happy memories of the godly, right? So we remember, the 12 disciples. We remember John the Baptist. We remember all these godly people, while these wicked people, they have their names rotted away, it says. For example, Saul. He used to be this horrible, horrible person who would go out of his way to persecute Christians, who would do these bad things because they were Christians. And, God came and changed his name and changed him for the better to Paul. And now he left Saul's name to rot away and lived as Paul, who went around spreading Christianity. It was one of the best believers in all of the Bible, in my opinion. Continuing on, it reads, the wise are glad to be instructed, but babbling fools fall flat on their faces. Basically, this is another rehashing of a previous verse in previous chapters, saying again, these people who are wise, they want to be wiser, they want to be more instructed, taking into account of today's times. These are people who are of God, right? Who want to be closer to God, and they are glad to be instructed. They're glad to be corrected. They're glad to get wiser in terms of God. But fools fall flat on their faces, it says. And basically, what it's saying is these people who don't want to get wiser, who don't want anything to do with God, who reject it at every turn, they don't want to hear it. Basically, what it's saying is these fools will fall flat, right? Plain and simple. They're not going to live very long. They're going to essentially fail at everything they do because they're not seeking to be better. And again, I think it's trying to give this example here. People with integrity, they walk safely, right? God's going to bless them. He's going to protect them. But people who don't, who walk crooked paths, it's saying, will slip and fall, right? God won't protect them to a sense. Like, he'll still protect them a little bit, and he'll still try to guide them back, but they're not going to want it. They're going to walk these crooked paths, and because that's not the way God intended for them, they're going to slip and fall. Things aren't going to go their way, essentially. And again, continuing on with these people who cause trouble, it's saying people who wink at wrong cause trouble, right? So, sorry, I had a brain fart. Again, people who like wrong, people who don't want God, they're trying to just not do the right thing. It's saying they cause trouble, right? But it's saying people with bold reproof promotes peace. So people who are of God, trying to do these things for God, they are trying to essentially promote peace, right? It's pretty simple. They want good things. They want the best for everyone. And that's what Solomon is trying to say here, that God wants. He wants these people to promote peace. They want the best for everyone. And so it compares the words of these godly people as a life-giving fountain. And again, the words of the wicked are just violent, right? Again, that's kind of a rehashing of before. And it says, wise words comes from people with understanding. So people who know better will say better, and people who don't will be beaten with a rod, it's saying. So these people who know better, and they do better, and they try and spread how to be better, they're going to be good, right? They're going to be in heaven, they're going to be with God. However, these people who lack common sense, it's saying, so people who don't believe in God, who have so many encounters with Him but refuse it, it says he's going to be beat with a rod. And I think that's kind of symbolism for hell there. And again, another rehashing of wise people, saying they value knowledge, whilst a fool invites disaster. Again, these wise people, they want to get better, they want, to be smarter, they want to be more of God. However, fools who don't want that only invite disaster into their homes, it's saying. They only get worse, they only go downhill, nothing will go their way. And it says, the wealth of the rich is their fortress. The poverty of the poor is their destruction. Again, I think you can tie that back to, the wise people again, and I don't think it's trying to talk about material wealth, but more so spiritual wealth, right? So being wealthy in the spirit and with God, that's going to be your fortress. That's going to protect you from all these things, all these sins and whatnot. Whilst the spiritually poor, them being spiritually poor is going to be their own downfall. They don't want God. They don't want any of that. They don't want to have a relationship. And that's going to be all the more easy for Satan to tempt them. So continuing on, it says, the earnings of the godly enhance their lives, but people who are evil squander their money on sin. So it's saying that people who are godly, who are wise, who are with God, they use their earnings to enhance their lives. So they spend money on what they need and not these useless things that will only promote sin. Versus evil people who aren't with God, they will spend their money on sin, right? So they'll be going to these unholy places like a strip club, for example, and they'll pay money to commit adultery, or they will pay money for like things like OnlyFans to commit adultery. I mean, there are other examples like they'll spend money on, say, a crowbar to break in and steal. They will spend money to sin. It's saying people who accept discipline are on the pathway to life, but those who ignore correction will go astray. Again, this is rehashing from a previous verse, saying that, people who are wise, they will accept and realize, oh, they're trying to correct me to a better path, but people who ignore that will keep going on their wrong path and ultimately lead to destruction in the grave. And it says, hiding hatred makes you a liar. Slandering others makes you a fool. And I think that's pretty straightforward. So too much talk leads to sin. So be sensible and keep your mouths shut. So I think this kind of a rehashing of the perverse things coming out of your mouth, talking about how, if you talk too much, eventually you're going to say something that God doesn't want you to say. I mean, it's just going to happen. And it's not saying that you should never talk, it's saying if you talk too much. So I think a good gauge for that is if you're talking about something and you are just going on and on and on about something that's not really honoring God, I think that's, too much. So it's saying, be sensible inside. You know what? Let's put a pin in that. Let's not talk about that. So instead, it's now saying the words of the godly are like sterling silver. The heart of a fool is worthless. So when you're not talking about something that doesn't honor God, and when you are talking about something that honors God, it is more valuable than silver, right? Something very precious, something that is worth a lot, it's saying, versus, the heart of a fool who doesn't honor God is completely worthless to him, essentially. He still loves that person, but in the end, it's really just worthless. There's nothing to gain from that person. And that's why I think God wants, to save so many people, is because, they won't want them to be worthless. He wants them to be like sterling silver. So continuing on now, it says the words of the godly encourage many, whilst fools are destroyed by their lack of common sense. Again, this is kind of rehashing of what it's been saying. These words of the godly, they're very valuable, but they also encourage a lot of people. They help people, and that kind of shows you the power of words, right? And that's kind of why I'm doing this, is to kind of encourage you all who are listening to also, do things for God. Whilst, fools here who will hear things like this, who will listen to these videos, maybe read the Bible even, but they don't. And it's saying they will be destroyed by that lack of common sense. And I think it's kind of common sense that, if the person you serve is telling you to do something, you don't do it, it's saying you will be destroyed. Now, you can apply this in a lot of situations here. For example, fools who purposely abandon God, right? Who know what they're doing and willfully sin, they're purposely destroying themselves, it's saying, for that lack of common sense. And now, continuing on, it says, the blessing of the Lord makes a person rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. So it's saying, living for God, he'll make you, spiritually rich. He'll bless you. He'll do these good things for you. And there's no downside, it's saying. There's no extra cost. There's no hidden fees. He says there's no sorrow that comes attached to that. And that's saying the blessings, right? Now, of course, it's hard to live for God, but the blessings he'll give you, they come with no extra costs. He just asks that you follow him. And there's no sorrow. So, he says, doing wrong is fun for a fool, but living wisely brings pleasure to the sensible. So basically it's saying here, again, that evil people love purposely doing wrong. They find it fun. And we should not be like that. We should not find being sinful good. if you do feel like that way, then I beg you to kind of question your relationship with God. Because personally, after I sin, I feel awful. I don't feel good. And that's what's supposed to happen. It's saying that the Holy Spirit will convict you. And he's saying what should happen is when you're living wisely and for God, being sensible should bring you pleasure. Doing things for God should make you fulfilled, it's saying. And it says, the fears of the wicked will be fulfilled, whilst the hopes of the godly will be granted. So people who aren't of God, what they fear will come true, whilst the wishes and the prayers of the godly will be answered. I think that one's very straightforward. When the storms of life come, the wicked are whirled away, whilst the godly have a lasting foundation. And so I think that one's pretty straightforward as well. When something bad arises, the wicked have no real foundation, because the foundation of everything, including wisdom and just everything, it said, is the fear of the Lord and God. And when the wicked don't fear the Lord, they don't love God, they don't do these things for God, they'd have no foundation. And so when something bad happens, and it compares it to a storm, they're going to be whirled away in chaos and all this bad things. Whilst the godly, when something bad happens and the storms come, is saying they have a lasting foundation. They're going to stay there, and they're not going to be swept up in the chaos, and they're going to have something, God, to allow them to stay on their correct path. And it says, lazy people irritate their employers like vinegar to the teeth or smoke in the eyes. So basically, again, it's another rehashing from the previous verse, saying that, these lazy people, they honestly not only hurt themselves, but also the people around them, their employers. And it says they irritate them. And it compares that to vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes. And if you've never had that, it hurts. Like smoke in the eyes, it burns a lot. And you have to take a second to really get it out of your eyes. And it's saying, that's how much it irritates, other people when someone's lazy. So continuing on, it says that the fear of the Lord will actually lengthen one's life, versus the wicked will actually have their lives shortened, it's saying. And I think that's very straightforward. It's another rehashing of a previous verse. The wisdom will keep you safe. Wisdom will increase your lifespan. And that fear of the Lord is going to extend your lifespan as well, because it's going to cause you to not do as much sinning, allow you to receive God's blessings, and do all kinds of other things, versus the wicked who don't get that. The hopes of the godly result in happiness, it says, but the expectations of the wicked come to nothing. So again, it's saying that people who are right with God, what they pray for will come true, whilst people who don't believe in God, what they hope for, and really is just hope, there's nothing that else coming from it, will come to nothing. Because, God's not going to bless someone with wicked thoughts, something that they want, that they will use for wickedness, it's saying. The way of the Lord is a stronghold to those with integrity, and it destroys the wicked. So it's saying the path of righteousness, which is the way of the Lord, is a stronghold, right? So it's going to keep you safe in these bad times, but only to those with integrity, right? So it's only going to protect the godly. It's going to, however, destroy the wicked, that stronghold. So when God is in your heart, it forms a stronghold, and it will destroy all the wickedness in your heart, and it will protect the integrity in your heart. So I kind of ask that in my prayers, that God, you take stronghold in my heart, and that you destroy and rid myself of all the unholiness and the wickedness. And it continues saying that the godly will never be disturbed, whilst the wicked will be removed from the land. And the mouth of the godly gives wise advice, whilst the tongue that deceives will be cut off. So it's saying here that, people who are of God will not be disturbed, right? Well, people who are not of God will be removed. And that's saying, they will go to hell, they will undo trials, whilst the godly, they won't have to go through that, and they won't be disturbed. God will, let them be, he'll bless them, and that's because they're of God. They're already living right to the best that they can through Jesus. And they will give good advice to others, whilst the person who deceives purposefully, trying to lead people astray, their tongue will be cut off, it's saying. So whatever they're using to, deceive, God's going to cut them off from that. And it continues saying that the lips of the godly only speak helpful words. So people who are truly of God, they will, display that. They will, speak of the Bible. They will speak things that, are godly, versus the mouth of the wicked will only speak perverse words. And I think Solomon's kind of warning us again not to do that. All right. So thank y'all for listening in. I know this has been a very long video, but I hope I got, something across. I'm going to apologize for all my stutters and all brain farts and all the things that kind of distracted you from the reading there. I'm just going to want to say sorry. I hope all of y'all have a blessed day, and I hope to see y'all next time.